You're watching the East West Football Network. I'm Jerry Martinez. I got Walter Stringer. I got Fidel Peraza. How we doing, gentlemen?
Hey, okay.
Jerry, great. How
Man,
you guys doing?
it was a busy day for us, Fidel. I mean, it was a hectic day. Well, not hectic, but we got to speak to Matt Mayoko, the 49ers insider. I think we just released that podcast, so make sure you guys go out there and tune in. I mean, right now, this is the time that you want to see what's going on in the land of the 49ers faithful,
Yeah,
right?
great interview, great podcast. Yeah, it's available now on all podcast platforms. Make sure you guys check it out. Share with your friends, share with your family, share with everyone. Great content.
Yeah, but back to it. We're inside the franchise, man. We're getting closer and closer to the actual NFL draft. I believe that's next Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Hopefully, whoever your team chooses, you guys are happy. But today we're talking Eagles and Giants, right? Right now, it's crazy. You had the NFC East just picking right back to back. You have the Cowboys picking 10. Yeah, you have the Giants picking 11, and you have the Eagles picking 12. It just I just that sums up the NFC East. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about the Eagles. They're picking 12 right now. When we look at the 2020 season in a nutshell, they finished last. Eagles finished last in a very weak NFC East division. They finished with a record of 4-11 with one tie, which is I don't know. It's very crazy. They amongst some of the news that they've done so far in this 2021 season is they've traded away Carson Wentz. Now he's a Colt. They released Doug Peterson. Their head coach Jim Schwartz stepped down as their defensive coordinator. All this within 3 years of winning their Super Bowl. It's just insane, right? In 2021, enter coach Nick Sirianni from the Colts. He was the Colts offensive coordinator. I actually don't think he called many plays. And they also made Jonathan Gannon. He's also a former Colts defensive back slash cornerback coach. So this is some of the news as of late. And of course, they traded from the sixth pick, they went down to 12. So Eagles still find a way to, in a nutshell, stay relevant. Gentlemen, if you can just from all that news you heard, obviously me
Hmm.
share with you guys. What can you guys take away from the 2020 season? How far is this team from actually getting back to the Super Bowl? I mean, tell me what are your thoughts right now of the 2020 season and the 2021 offseason? Well,
Well, Jer-
or go
okay.
ahead. Go
Wait,
ahead.
what?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Fidel.
All right. Well, Jerry. I mean, when you think about last year, I mean, if I had to pick one word to describe it, I would say disaster. Reason being is because you're thinking about, you just talked about the Eagles were, they're only 3 years out from winning a Super Bowl championship. And take a look at what happened. Carson Wentz, we don't know what happened, injuries. Ever since Nick Foles won a Super Bowl for the Eagles, it kind of seemed like I don't know if I want to be here. I'm in someone's shadow because they want a ring and whatnot. So you think about just the quarterback position alone. We saw Carson Wentz struggles also with injuries, and then you go to Doug Peterson. Look, I get it. They both could not be on the same team. And we talked about it multiple times on the podcast.
We
I
did.
was just surprised that after trading Wentz, they fired Doug Peterson and then hired Nick Sirianni. That was kind of out of the blue. Um, Looking at the offseason, look, they have a lot of needs. Now they have a quarterback in Jalen Hurts. And what even makes this situation even more crazier was that the rumors were that the Eagles are trying to trade up the Miami Dolphins, where the Niners actually traded for the third overall pick because they wanted to draft a quarterback. A lot of people were saying Zach Wilson. I mean, I'm not too sure if that's true or not, but still, if you're Jalen Hurts is like, hey, like I'm your guys' starting quarterback next year, like why are you guys trying to replace me already? I haven't even had a full season under my belt, so the Eagles got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and I would like just to add to that, right? I know. Well, you're gonna step in, but I mean, Jalen Hurts did show that the NFL is not too big of a stage. I mean, what can you add to that, Walt?
Well, first of all, to jump into Philly from last season, it was turmoil. That was the one word I would have to describe everything. That roster has been beat up for the last 2+ years. Carson managed to drag that team to the playoffs year before last. Everything really imploded this past season. Things fell out between him and the head coach. Trust was lost. He was traded, so now they lean on Jalen Hurts. Then, of course, we had that debacle that happened in Week 17 as far as Jalen Hurts being pulled from the game, which caused a big fiasco as far as the media is concerned. But I think the main thing, the main cardinal sin that the Eagles violated was after they won that Super Bowl, they started handing out bad contracts. And they handed out bad contracts that looked to be good contracts at the time, but they were to aging players. And, you know, you can never dictate or understand when guys are going to get hurt. And I understand that. But instead of saying, okay, you know, we won, let's hit the mini reset button. Let's get some picks in here. Let's get some young athletes behind these older players. They decided to go ahead and pay the older players. And those players are beat up now, and they're not full of bad contracts. And I hear they're still trying to actually trade. Is it Brandon Brooks?
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, the Eagles have some problems. I would hope they would give Jalen Hurts a fair shake. You know, you did spend a second-round pick on him.
You did.
Yeah, and then if I can add on just real quick, Jerry and Walter. I mean, so you bring in a new regime as far as coaching goes, right? He's probably going to want his own quarterback. Let's be honest here. So let's not be surprised too. Maybe in the later rounds, the Eagles draft a quarterback, or maybe they go up and trade for one. You got to think about it. Doug Peterson was the one that selected Jalen Hurts, not Nick Sirianni. So Nick Sirianni maybe is not sold on Hurts for whatever reason, and is possibly even looking, to draft a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's just one of those things where I don't know why the Eagles seem to be taking so many chances when the NFC East is so wide open right now. I mean, there's not a true team that's being so dominant. I mean, look at the big chances they took with their coaching staff. I mean, Nick Sirianni, and then you got Jonathan Gannon, who both have, yeah, they've been in the league for a while, but just because you see the success the Colts are having with that defensive alignment that they're running, Matt, is it Everfus? Oh, I'm sorry, and oh gosh, Frank Reich, right? So, you're trying to mimic this, and then you have, like you said, Jalen Hurts, who showed some promise, and then you're gonna get your if you get your offensive line back. I mean, you're kind of like back in the swing of things, and you could possibly take this NFC East and make your push back into the playoffs. I mean, your defense, yeah, it's
Yeah.
aging, but you still have some key pieces in place. I mean, for them, like you said, also just to add, how were they able to add Anthony Harris, who has been a standout safety for the Vikings these last couple of years, and for
Yeah.
Jason Kelsey to come back? These are big names right here, and not to
Yeah.
mention you got Darius Slay last year. So, I
Well,
mean, it's
also
just
look at what they paid him. They only paid him what, $5 million for 1 year.
I believe so. But
Yeah.
still, for them to be able to lock in talent like this is a team that has the right tools, the right talent. I just don't know why are you going to be taking so many chances with a division that you can easily take control of.
And, and also, Jared, just to add on, what kind of bothered me too about what the Eagles were doing in the offseason. So I get you got to trade Carson Wentz. That was a done deal, right? But what you got in return, you didn't get enough. The Bears
Yeah.
were offering a lot more than what the Colts did. But Carson Wentz was rumored to say, hey, I'm not going to Chicago. I'm not going to play there. I want to go play in Indianapolis, which, Carson Wentz and the Colts had the upper hand on that. But still, I mean, if you're the Eagles, man, there's a lot of things I'm sure they would have redone this offseason and also during the season. But to me, you got to get more for Carson Wentz. Let's think about the draft capital they gave up to draft Carson Wentz.
Yeah, I
True.
think I think you're absolutely right. I think we also saw some. I mean, I know Sam Darnold's not the same quarterback as a Carson Wentz, but we saw Sam Darnold went for pretty much pennies on the dollar on a
Yeah.
trade. So it's kind of crazy offseason. So let's look at the Eagles, man. They're picking 12th right now. They have a couple needs, man. A need that they've had for I feels like forever. It's a linebacker position. Uh, I don't know why they don't like drafting linebacker. You can go ahead and throw in a defensive back and also wide receiver. Uh, why wide receiver? Even though you got Jalen Rager last year, because they released Jeffrey, they released Deshaun Jackson. So, I mean, I know you brought back Greg Ward, but still, I mean, can these players stay healthy? So you gotta when you're at the Eagles position right there, you gotta take this into consideration. Now let's look at some of the best in the business that do mock drafts and actually study these players. I mean, I don't know how much they study all the way through, right? Well,
Yeah.
but so for instance, I like CBS Sports. I think that Pete Frisco, Ryan Wilson, they both do a great job. But Pete Frisco released his mock draft. He has the Eagles selecting defensive back or cornerback J.C. Horn out of Carolina. ESPN Mel Kiper also has the Eagles selecting a cornerback, but he has them selecting Patrick Surtain the second. ESPN Todd McShay is the only one that is with me on here. But he has them mocked with Micah Parsons, and that's a linebacker you really want to have. And Daniel Jeremiah has the Eagles selecting Patrick Surtain the second. So when we look at this, gentlemen, I know that defensive back is a very important position. Is there another? I mean, Walter, just if you could start this off, where would you address the need first and why?
For me, it all depends on the value of the player at that position, and they're picking at 12. So I think J.C. Horn, in my opinion, is the best corner in this draft. I think he'll be gone before 12, possibly to Dallas. But I think after him, I think Surtain would be the wise pick. Either Surtain or, in my estimation, I would go offensive line also. They've got a lot of problems still on that offensive line. They can use some young talent there. They could also use Micah Parsons. There's a lot of teams in the league defensively that could use a Micah Parsons in that scheme as far as either a strong side or a weak side linebacker. But in my opinion, I think Surtain will probably wind up being the pick.
It's real crazy, Fidel. Before I know
Yeah.
you come on, but when you look at it, there's three names at corner that stand out. There's three names at wide receiver that truly stand out, and there's only one tight end that stands out, and then of course you got your quarterbacks. So when we look at it, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think that the Eagles should address? It
W-
could be position.
Well, so Jerry, like we were talking about before, so if Nick Sirianni is going to roll with Jalen Hurts, he's going to want to know, like, hey, this is going to be my guy for the future. So you need to get him some weapons. So we know Jalen Rieger was pretty much hurt all last year, but I think you still need to add another wideout. Maybe Jalen Waddle, if he's available, would be the pick for the Eagles. But I do feel like they need to address that.
Wow. I mean, Jalen Waddle does seem like an
Well,
Eagles type of wide receiver too.
question.
What's up?
They do pick at 37.
They do.
And this is a pretty deep draft wide receiver wise. So I don't anticipate 7 or 8 wide receivers going in the first round the way some people do. But I believe if they want to address the wide receiver position at 37, and they could always just take the best available corner at 12, whether they decide to take a flyer on Caleb Farley or
Yeah.
if it's Surtain or if it's J.C. Horn.
Yeah.
Let me ask you that you mentioned a very interesting name there, Walt. You said Caleb Farley. Now his medicals came back clean from what I've been hearing, from that Indy medical checkup that they do in Indy every year, the second one. Um, how comfortable would you feel drafting Caleb Farley, and how high would you feel comfortable drafting Caleb Farley after his medical cleared out?
Well, it would all depend on how honest you believe the player is going to be with you in interviews. Because everybody's going to tell you they're healthy. But back problems for a tall corner kind of scare me. And he's about, what, 6'2.5"?
6'2.5", runs a
Yeah,
4.240.
right. And he's a very upright player. And like I said, back problems for tall corners do kind of scare me. But from a talent standpoint, if he's healthy and you hit on him, you have a potential number one corner for a long time.
Yes, you do. And
Yeah. And then
Virginia Tech always seems to, like, just out of the every 5 to 10 years, they just seem to get these corners just coming out of nowhere that just are superstars in the league.
yeah, and then I get what you're saying, Walt, but like to me, like we've seen this multiple times in past drafts when a team selects a player and then the following team selects the same position, like there's a trend. So I get that it's a deep class, but it might be one of those situations like there might be like 7 or 8 wide receivers taken, and we don't even know because I'm thinking that we're still going to see some trades in the first round.
Well, okay, so problem is this: small wide receivers, and like pretty much all of these guys are tiny.
They
You
are.
know, and these small wide receivers really don't. They tend to not hold up all that well in the NFL, especially in that rookie year. Smaller wide receivers tend to get banged up a lot. And that's also what I'm worried about. I like Rashad Bateman. I'm just not sure if Bateman at that pick would be the wise pick because I don't think he's a dynamic enough player. I think Bateman can be a solid number 2 for a long time. But unless a guy like Devonta Smith, and I'm still kind of iffy on Devonta because he's small. You
Small.
know, he's
Yeah.
small also.
Real
But, you know,
quick,
you look at guys like Jamar Chase, Devonta Smith, Waddle. I think once those top 2 wide receivers go, we can easily see Waddle come off the board very quick. Even Kadarius Toney, you know, as tough as a wide receiver as Kadarius Toney is, Tony is still not that prototypical number 1 wide receiver. And I'm just skeptical of taking those guys. I would much rather take a blue chip corner
I will
or
say this real
maybe
quick.
the 4th or 5th wide receiver on the board by that time.
People don't know this. Devonta Smith actually played gunner on special teams, man. So I mean, to play gunner in the special teams, you
He
got to
ain't
be a
played gunner on special teams in the NFL.
well, but still, I'm just saying, like that mean that you got to have some level of
I
Yeah.
know.
toughness to play gunner,
Yeah.
and
And I
that's when he
mean,
first came into Alabama.
guys, I mean, it really comes down to what look, the Eagles have multiple positions they need to fill. To
True.
me, it's going to be the best player that's available on the board when it's their turn to draft. They got
Oh,
multiple holes. I mean, this team is not going to get fixed overnight, even with the draft.
oh, I think that's always right. The safest pick is always the best player available. But definitely, I mean, when you're trying to like I said, when that division is so close, you can afford to draft
Well,
elite.
let me ask you this then, since we're still on the Eagles. What about quarterback? Like, could we see the Eagles reach? Like, if let's say, for instance, Trey Lance was to fall to that pick.
It's possible, man. I mean,
He's
today
sort of a Donovan McNabb clone,
to me,
physically.
all these crazy scenarios are going through my head. I was like, man, yeah, I've heard the Bears are trying to position themselves to get into position if he does fall. I've seen also the Washington football team also trying to position themselves to get into position. You're talking about teams that are picking 20th and 15th to be able to draft. Let's just say somebody like a Trey Lance does fall. So it's crazy. But you can never count out the Eagles if they're trying to draft a quarterback with that 6th pick, but then finding out that that quarterback's not going to be there. That's why they traded out. You never know
Mhm.
what the Eagles are up to,
A-
especially with Howie Roseman. He thinks that quarterbacks are the biggest draft capital of all.
And I'll just leave it at this, Jared, too, real quick, just to kind of wrap up and thoughts about the Eagles and whatnot. Look, this division alone, they had a lot of injuries, so let's not forget it. And we know it was a horrible division and all this and that, but they had a lot of injuries. I think this division is going to be a lot better going forward.
I do think so too. I mean, I think that almost except for the Washington football team, the rest of the actual teams seem to have a quarterback that they can move forward in that direction. So definitely it's going to be interesting to see. I know, like I said, it's one of those things where I can't wait for Thursday to come by, next Thursday to come, but I also don't want it to end. So I don't know how that'll work out. But let's move on. We're talking Giants now. Giants finished 6-10. They tied with the Cowboys, and just like many NFL teams, I mean, they got hit by the injury bug really early in the season. Most notable was Saquon Barkley, the superstar running back, formerly out of Penn State. I mean, this guy is literally a I don't know. He's just a superstar. The Joe Judge experience, right? And they bring in the Patriots. I believe he was the Patriots special teams
Special teams.
coordinator.
Yep.
Yeah. So the Joe Judge experience, it seems to need another year, maybe possibly two, depending on how patient the owner is, to be able for us to fully access this coaching staff. Along with it, I mean, they also have Jason Garrett, who they brought back. When you look at the big picture, though, I mean, the Giants, they finished 31st in total offense. The highlight was their defense. They finished 12th in total defense, and some notable names that they were able to bring in was Danny Shelton, the nose tackle on the defensive line. They brought in the cornerback Adoree Jackson, who the Titans cut, and they brought in Reggie Ragland. They also locked up Leonard Williams, the defensive tackle, the stud defensive tackle. They locked him up long term, and they also were able to bring in Kenny Galladay. When we look at the Giants in a nutshell, it's not good when your head coach is making news getting into almost a fist fight with the offensive line coach. I don't know if we remember the Coach
Mark
Colombo
Colombo.
situation. Mark Colombo, Coach Colombo's
Yeah.
situation. I mean, it's never good, right? But
No.
let's look at the Giants in a nutshell. 2020. I mean, I know that, like I said, the injury bug got him. What? Let's not beat around the bush. What'd you see in Daniel Jones? Do you think that he is a true franchise quarterback?
To
What's
me,
your first?
we saw a lot of inconsistency. I mean, and that might be a part of him not having weapons. And obviously, Sterling Shepard was always hurt. You talked about Saquon being hurt, was pretty much out the whole year. Evan Ingram didn't help out causes, dropping passes from Daniel Jones. So to me, I mean, this year or last year, I guess you could say, was kind of inconclusive because you don't know what you have yet. Joe Judge did a tremendous job, I think, in his first year of coaching the Giants. But going forward, I think you have to find out if Daniel Jones is going to be your franchise quarterback moving forward.
Yeah, well said. What about you, Walt? What do you think? What do you like about Daniel Jones? Did you see any improvements?
Saw a lot of inconsistencies, as Fidel just mentioned with Daniel Jones. Personally, I believe Daniel Jones can do it. We've seen what he can do when he has a clean pocket. He's not constantly flustered all the time. Receivers aren't constantly hurt. He's not stuck throwing to his fourth, fifth, and sixth wide receivers at sometimes. Um, his superstar running back, who's probably one of the top two talented running backs in all of football, he can't stay healthy. And I think it all comes down to the Giants realizing that you invested two top 10 picks in a quarterback and a running back, and you can't keep either one of them healthy. One guy is always nicked up. The other guy has turned into a turnover machine because he's always skittish because his pocket is never clean. So I think the convenient notion to solve that would be we'll just throw more weapons at the situation. That'll fix everything. Just give more weapons. Went out, signed Kenny Galladay. I also believe that they signed John Ross.
And then also the tight end from the Minnesota Vikings.
True. So if you look at it for what it is, he's got a healthy Saquon Barkley. He's got two tight ends and Kyle Rudolph, who can be a consistent pass catcher and a consistent blocker down in, down out for them, which is what Evan Ingram can't be. He's got Sterling Shepard, a healthy Sterling Shepard. He's got Kenny Galladay. He's got John Ross. There's no telling what else they can also get later on in the draft. I think also a wide receiver. So also Danny Shelton. That's a lot of mass in the middle of that defense with him and Dexter Lawrence. And that's a lot of scheme versatility. They also signed Afeni Adebo from the Minnesota Vikings, who also gives them a lot of effort, a lot of high motor, a lot of scheme versatility along that defensive line. So I think the Giants they're right there. They are right there. I think that defenses came along a lot. And every time I get a chance, I give all the credit to them drafting Dexter Lawrence, who was one of my favorite players in the draft 2 years ago. And it just goes to show you, strike one for the big guys in the middle of the defense. When you get that anchor in the middle of the defense, it just brings everything else to the forefront so much better. And I think if you give Daniel Jones a little more protection, give him a solid offensive line, it'll help out Saquon. A better Saquon means a better Daniel Jones. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a revamped offensive line. So, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, even with the first pick, Andrew Thomas, right? I mean, they kept the continues and they fixed it with free agency moves. So when you look at it, let's
I'm
look
not
at
sure
their.
if they fixed it necessarily. They made some moves. I mean, even Andrew Thomas. Andrew was inconsistent at best last season.
So well, let's talk about this year's needs. I mean, they're picking 11th, obviously. They their top needs. I mean, it could be in any particular order, but I mean, I know they did address the defensive back, but defensive back has been something they do need to address, whether it be safety or corner. Wide receiver, even though you added Kenny Galladay, but Stelling Sherper can stay healthy. And then of course edge rusher. They've been needing an edge rusher for a while. They run this 3-4 scheme, and they really don't have that outside linebacker. Let's look at what the CBS Sports and ESPN pros have out there, or have them mocking. So right now, Pete Frisco has the Giants selecting Jalen Waddle. And he just said that when you look at it, there's not an offensive line, there's not an edge rusher, there's not really any cornerback or any defensive back that could really give you that kind of um value at pick 11. Says Jalen Waddle is just too is it's a hard prospect to miss, especially with the way he's played at Alabama. And I think Walt has said this in the past, when we talked about it. Jalen Waddle just makes things happen with every opportunity he gets. Also, ESPN Mel Kiper also has Giants selecting Jalen Waddle. Todd McShay has them trading down with the actual New England Patriots, right? Allowing the Patriots to and Todd McShay's, I guess, their quarterback. In the process, they're drafting Jeremiah Owusu Kurumua out of Notre Dame, the ultra talented linebacker who probably a lot of people are saying he's going to be a safety in the NFL this year. And the NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah has the Giants selecting Devonta Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner. Whew, from that list, guys. I mean, what do you think? I mean, we've seen the Giants. It's one of those things where, from my perspective of the Giants, there's not that they don't have that aside from Saquon. They really don't have that superstar on the NFL, on the defensive side. What do you think? I mean, how can this Giants be able to be competing week in and week out to take over this NFC East division? They did have a good run towards the end, but let's just say on a consistent weekly basis, what positional group do you think? What whether it be offense, defense, or an actual particular player? Fidel,
So Jerry, so we talked about their rankings last year. I believe you said that they were 31st on offense, correct?
that's
So
almost dead last,
I,
yeah.
I think right now the defense has some holes, but the offense has even more holes. So to me, second year going into the Joe Judge experience, you need to find out if Danny Dimes is Danny Dimes. Can he throw the football? Can he lead a high potent offense? So to me, I think the wide receiver's got to be the pick here, either Devonta Smith or Kenny Galladay, or no, I'm sorry, Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, I think that's why he's almost a consensus at this point. And the only reason he's at this slot, I believe it's because of his ankle. Well, am I right or am I wrong on this situation?
Yeah, yeah. I think at the time that he got hurt for Alabama, he was on pace to pretty much outdo what Devonta Smith actually wound up doing. So yeah, if it wasn't for the ankle, he could still wind up going top 10
Yeah.
anyway. But me personally, I just wouldn't touch wide receiver at this spot. I think if you this all from the offensive line standpoint, that would give them so much more value at number 11. And there's a good chance Panay Sewell won't be there, but Rayshawn Slater could possibly be there. And I would find it kind of strange if they passed on Rayshawn Slater. Or even if they didn't, even if Slater was gone, another guy, Elijah Vera Tucker, who could play either tackle position, he
Or
could
guard.
play either guard position, and he will help open up a lot of things for Saquon Barkley once again. I think if you're going to help this team out now, you look at the weapons that Daniel Jones already has. How many more weapons does he really need?
Well said. I think when you
Also, Micah Parsons.
Oh,
There's a
well,
chance, if Parsons is there, you could say, you know what, throw Micah Parsons behind Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams and Danny Shelton. And hey, Micah
I,
can run sideline to sideline, see ball, chase ball.
I think this is actually one of the picks that I had predicted early in the season. Right when he opted out, I said I think that Michael Parsons is probably going to be the closest thing to LT that you can get. And
He looks like an old Giants linebacker.
yeah, like an old Giants linebacker. And I was saying if they could get back to that identity, I think that would kind of help them in a sense of, like I said, a superstar on the defensive side. You got it in Saquon on the offense, but if you can add that on the defense, and Saquon and Mike, I'm sorry, Micah Parsons says that he wants to be an edge rusher, and it's crazy because I have him as the second best edge rusher in this class. And the great thing about him is that he can drop back in coverage.
Well,
So I
Micah
actually
wants that edge rusher money too.
yeah, he does.
Yeah.
It's all game plan, right, for the future. But when we look at it, I mean, it's good that we're able to see, what, the media, the mainstream, what is it, the mainstream media is able to put out there as far as names and potential prospects, landing spots for these players. But honestly, I think that it's time for the Giants to address the defensive side. Me personally, I'm on board with Walter. I think that Michael Parsons would be your Saquon Barkley. I think that Danny Dimes has to just kind of rely on Saquon Barkley, and they need to add depth in running back in the later rounds because I know Saquon hasn't been able to stay healthy. But let's say he stays healthy, you got your two playmakers, and you can continue building your team off of that.
I have a question for both of you. So if
Sure.
you're the Giants, you have multiple needs again, just like the Eagles. So if you get a phone call that says, "Hey, we want to trade with you. We'll give you a couple, we'll give you a third and a fourth." What do you guys do?
It depends. How far back am I moving? I mean, if I'm moving within range where I can still get the player I want, I'll do it in a heartbeat. The Giants, I don't know, for whatever reason, they just do not like these superstars. I guess because I don't know. It looks like they don't really want to play that long term money, or maybe they're saving it for
Yeah.
Danny Dimes. I don't know,
Yeah.
but I think that in the history that I've seen David Gettleman, I've never seen a trade, so I don't think a trade would happen in this case.
And man, they miss Odell Beckham Jr. ever since he's left. I mean, the wideout position with the Giants has not been ideal for them at all. So that's what I was going to for a wide receiver early in the draft too. Somebody to stand out to help out Daniel Jones, and I completely agree with both of you as far as the offensive line issues and then also defensive issues. But I think you have to find out if Daniel Jones is going to be your franchise quarterback moving forward.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I'll tell you this real quick before I let Walt answer that question of him moving down. I think it was John Murrow, the actual. Well, it's because they're co-owners, right?
Mhm.
But John Murrow is the majority owner. He actually said that his grandsons or his grandchildren were extremely mad with him for allowing the Odell Beckham Jr. trade to happen. So obviously John Murrow knows exactly what he lost in OBJ. So who knows? Maybe he can try to, push his way to force them to draft a wide receiver with that potential. But the smart move for them is to get back to that old Giants identity. Walt, what do you think? Do you think David Gettleman finally gives in and does a trade back in this scenario?
I wouldn't trade out of the first.
No,
I would
well,
trade. Yeah, I would maybe trade back into late teens, early 20s, maybe even late 20s, sure, but I would not trade back all the way back into the pick up a third and a fourth because I think that's where you start kind of getting into no man's land.
yeah,
This draft, I believe, is deep enough where you can get pro bowlers, you can get starters in the first, second, and probably even the first half of the third round. I think that's how deep this draft honestly is at wide receiver, at guard, at running back. So no, I'm not trading out of the first. I think both of these teams need to hit on these picks.
they do.
If you look at the Giants, I understand you look at Andrew Thomas. They took Andrew Thomas because they knew they needed Andrew Thomas. They didn't necessarily need Andrew Thomas, but they needed to address the offensive line. Now, is there a chance they'll go offensive line again this year? There is. I don't think they will. I personally would, depending on how the draft board was falling. But nah, I'm not trading back. They need elite talent, and so do the Eagles. That's why I say the Eagles, whoever they get at that pick needs to be an elite talent. They shouldn't reach either. But who knows? This offseason has been going so strange right now. Mac
Yeah.
Jones could end up in an Eagles jersey for all we know.
I mean, and there might be a quarterback that falls down, and maybe people are calling the Giants, "Hey, we want this quarterback. What do you want?" So I mean, who knows?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. But I will go ahead and before we get off the air, I'm gonna make this prediction. Whatever team in the NFC East has the best, um, whoever has the best draft class that can give you some starters at key positions is gonna probably be is probably gonna be the team that actually takes the East this year in 2021 and actually gets into the playoffs, respectively. Well, gentlemen, thank you all for coming on and thank you all for tuning in. Who knows? Maybe we'll surprise you after the coaches' corner tomorrow with another doubleheader. Up next would be the Cowboys and the Broncos. But stay tuned. Make sure you tune into that podcast. Matt Mayoko drops some great knowledge, man. I mean, you want to know what the 49ers are thinking, what's going on in there, tune in on all social media. Well, not only all social media, but tune into all our social media. But I'm saying tune into all our podcast platforms. We want to thank you so much. Stay tuned and we'll